that point, my lord, that concludes the leading of the evidence for the state. Okay. And we close the state case. It's precisely 3 years since the state started leading evidence, and the state now formally closes this case. State case closed. Yes.
What's up, people? We are back with another video. The page is called South African Late News. Yesterday, Baloyi closed his case, and then the case has been postponed to the 7th of August. And on the video that I posted on the 14th of July, I said Advocate Mnisi needs to apply for Section 174 discharge. You can see the video on the link below. And yesterday, Mnisi did just that. He told the court that she intends to bring in Section 174 when the case resumes in August. Section 174 discharge simply requires the judge to dismiss the case due to insufficient evidence against the accused. That is the case here. There is not enough evidence against these 5 men. The state relied mostly on confessions. There was no direct evidence that links accused 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Direct evidence means DNA evidence, fingerprints, or a video that shows the events of that day. None of that is present in this case. So there is not enough evidence to find these guys guilty. That is if we have a fair judge. So now Mnisi will go to Legal Aid Board so that he can get more funding, so that he can do more research and then represent these guys. So Legal Aid Board, they said they are meeting on the 6th of August. So Mnisi will have the answer on the following day for the court. But Baloyi took 3 years to finish his case. 3 years to finish his weak case. But Baloyi failed to bring in Kelly Khumalo, Mama Kelly Khumalo, Ulongotwala, and he also failed to bring in Umapiri to testify. But during recess, Baloyi suffered a major blow. That was when Absalom Zungu revealed that Brigadier Kininda came to him and asked him to come to court and then implicate accused 1 and 2. Meaning that uKininda wafika kuBaba uZungu wamcela akeze enkantolo azoqamba amanga ngalabasola abo 1 and 2. But Baba uZungu, because he's a man of integrity, he refused. So now we know that Kininda tried to influence uBaba uZungu. That is not allowed. But asiqhubeka sasikho lapha kakhulu. Now that Baloyi is done with his case, we can look at this case holistically. The case can be broken down into 3 components or 3 parts, whatever way you like. The first part is fabrication, second part is collusion, then the last part is ambush. And I'll briefly explain each. Firstly, let's talk about fabrication. Fabrication involves the tampering of evidence or falsifying statements. That's number 1. The second one is collusion. Collusion simply means the illegal cooperation or conspiracy in order to deceive others. Illegal cooperation ukuze kudeceive abanye abantu. The third one is ambush. Ambush simply refers to when you surprise your enemy or your competition with evidence or surprise attack. That is ambush. So let's deal with one at a time. The first one is fabrication. The entire case of the state is built around fabricated evidence. That is a fact. In this case, fabrication started at the beginning of this case. It started when the people that were in the house failed to call the police or the ambulance after Sens was shot. It's clear that after Sens was shot, those that were in the house did not give a damn about him. They were more worried about saving or protecting the person that shot him. So that is when they prepared to come up with the lies that they were going to tell. So that is fabrication. Then, Advocate Tefo, he said Senzo was only brought to hospital just to be dumped there. He was already dead when he got to the hospital because the people that were in the house did not phone the ambulance. That is very important for this case. That's very important because now you can see that people in the house, the first person that they phone is Chico Twala, but they did not phone the ambulance. So that shows you that there was planning there on how to cover up for what has just happened. So that is part of fabrication. And then therefore he further alleged that they called Chico Twala so that they can get advice on how to get rid of that revolver. That was the one that was used to shoot Senzo Meyiwa. Therefore further alleged that that revolver belongs to Chico Twala. So in that house, he alleged that it was brought by Ulongo Twala. Okay, go back. Then fabrication continued when everyone had left for hospital. Constable Mthethwa and Matebula arrived at the crime scene, but they failed to secure the crime scene. They left the crime scene unattended, leaving Mapiri to clean the crime scene and destroying important evidence that would have implicated the person that shot Senzo Meyiwa. And then Advocate Baloyi did not dispute that Mapiri cleaned the crime scene. Baloyi did not dispute that. It means Baloyi agreed that Mapiri cleaned the crime scene because he did not call any witness to dispute that fact. So I'm glad that Baloyi did not dispute that fact. So Judge Rata has to take that into account when coming to his decision. No witness came to court to dispute that Mapiri compromised the crime scene by cleaning it. Then the next fabrication occurred in the crime scene. Sergeant Mosia arrived on that Sunday at night after 4 hours when Senzo was dead. So he arrived 4 hours late. Then that's when everybody had moved in and out of the crime scene. So by the time Mosia arrived, the crime scene was totally tampered with because people moved in and out of that house. So they were not going to be able to collect proper fingerprints, footprints, and so on because the crime scene was not secured by Mthethwa and Matebula. So Mosia, they arrived there, the crime scene was already compromised. And then Mosia, he looked for the bullets in the house on that Sunday and he found nothing. But then the following Monday, they found a bullet jacket. Clearly, that bullet jacket was planted there in the crime scene. It was planted by someone. So this is what we call fabrication. So you can see now, each time we move, there's more fabrication in this case. And then Advocate Mnisi told Julo Umangena in his face that he tested a wrong gun because that bullet did not come out of the 9mm. The bullet that shot Senzo came out of the 38 Special. And Mangena did not have an answer that. He just said, "I have nothing to say, my lord, but that is a fact. The gun that was used was a revolver." And then Mosia in the crime scene, he did not take fingerprints. And he took only a few photos of the crime scene, which is very shocking because you would expect the forensic experts to take photos inside the house, outside the house. We were told that the shooter ran to the park, but till today we don't have a picture of that park. Why? Because Mosia did not take it. So you can see that even the investigation was very poor. It was like it was done by Mfano of Funda grade R or Osakrej. The way Mosia did it, it was so unprofessional. And then we fast forward to when the 5 guys were arrested. We now know that accused 1 and 2 were tortured so that they can confess. So that is what? Further fabrication. They fabricated those confessions in order to suit the narrative of the state. That is part of Baloyi's case. Now we know. And then about 2 weeks ago, Absalom Zungu told the Sultan Underworld that Brigadier Gininda promised him money if he testified in court against Ntanzi and Sibiya. Zungu further said that his son told him that the police promised him a promotion if he testified against Ntanzi and the rest of the accused. That came from Absalom Zungu, telling us that his son told him that. So I don't think Absalom Zungu could lie about what his son said, because it's his own son. He cannot put his own son under the bus. It means Zungu told him, so I believe in that. So now we know that the evidence that was brought by Constable Zungu was fabrication, because it never happened. Zungu was never at the hostel. We know that because his father told us now that his son told him that he will testify because he was promised a promotion. So that is another fabrication by the state. So you can see that we can mention so many things about fabrication because it's long list. But let's move on from fabrication. And the next component is collusion. It's clear that Baloyi and Judge Rata were indirectly working together, because Judge Fazile Rata always agreed with Vaseline in almost every aspect in this case. He never argued with Baloyi. Whatever Baloyi said, it was yeah, in terms of the law, yes, I agree, blah 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 blah. That is collusion, and that is unbecoming of a judge. So Baloyi was very happy to have this judge because the judge was like his friend. But when it came to Mshololo and Mnisi, Judge Rata kept on interrupting Mshololo and Mnisi whenever they were making a point. That shows that the judge was biased towards the state. The judge was biased towards the state, meaning that the accused will not get a fair trial because the judge is clearly biased, and no one can deny that. And no one would forget when Judge Rata or how Judge Rata reacted when Mnisi wanted to run in the comrade marathon. We'll remember that he made racist comments about black lawyers and so on. So his reputation was tarnished after that because he made silly comments that were inappropriate. And then the lies that he made about Advocate Mngome Zulu. Remember Advocate Mngome Zulu when he was sick in hospital? Judge Rata, in his own sick mind, he said he saw Dlagadla lapha at court. Meanwhile, Dlagadla was fighting for his life in hospital. And when it was announced that Mngome Zulu had died, Rata did not apologize for his comments, which shows that he didn't take that defense seriously. Even at their death, he didn't care. So this judge was colluding with the state. That is a fact. And then the last component is ambush, which is ambush was Advocate Baloyi's strategy from start to finish. Baloyi made sure that each week he brings in new evidence in court. But the law says the defense must be given exhibits and statements at the beginning of the case, not during the case. That would mean that the defense was treated unfairly because they got evidence like in the morning he would hand out exhibits, whereas the defense has no time to go through those exhibits and read and understand, and they are forced to request for an adjournment because Baloyi brought evidence very late, and that is not legal. The defense must be given every exhibit before the trial starts. That's how the law works. You do not investigate the case from start to finish you only bring the case to court once you have done with the investigations. But Kininda was investigating even last week. This shows that the state was not prepared for this case. The state was not prepared for this case. Baloyi kept on bringing you evidence every week, and the judge allowed it because they were colluding. That is illegal. The state is supposed to bring a case to court once all the investigation has been done, once all the exhibits have been given to the defense, once all the statements have been given to the defense, then the case can come to court. But not in Baloyi's case. So clearly the state was not ready for this case because they kept on investigating. So you can see that the case was badly handled from the start to finish. And some people have said Baloyi is the best prosecutor that we have in this country. I tend to differ. The way he handled this case, it is rather disappointing. I would have expected someone that knows the rules of the court to handle this case. But anyway, Baloyi is lucky because he got a judge that is biased and the judge that liked him. So that's going to work in Baloyi's advantage because the judge likes him. I don't know why. But there again, the defense team will have an opportunity to take the case on appeal if the accused are found guilty. There on appeal, it's not going to be hard to prove that the judge was biased because we've got all this on record. The argument with Mshololo, the insult on black lawyers, it's there on record. So any appeals court that is sober-minded will see that this judge is biased. Clearly. And this section 174 discharge, I think who accused number 4 has the best chance of winning it because there is no evidence against Mapisa. None. Zero. We were told that Mapisa, he was a lookout, but nobody saw him there. Even the neighbor, Tabi Seng, did not see him. Even the Ngashes, not Ngashes, the Ngashes, they did not see accused number 4 at the Kumalo house. So Baloyi is relying on Zungu's evidence to convict these guys because Zungu, he's the only one that links all 5 accused because Zungu said all 5 accused were at the hostel before 6, and then they came back after 9 or so, carrying guns and wearing hoodies. Then he said they drank alcohol to celebrate Senzo Mayor's death, even though it was before it was announced to the media. So he is implying that they knew in advance about Senzo's death because they were involved. So that's the only evidence that links all these 5 guys. So Mapisa, I think if we've got a fair judge, he should succeed in this section 174 discharge because there is no evidence against him. Accused number 5, the only evidence that they have is that fake communication between him and Kelly Kumar. However, Colonel Steyn could not tell us how was the communication made. Was it via WhatsApp, BlackBerry Messenger, or Skype, or whatever? Colonel Steyn could not tell us. So that should create some reasonable doubt in Judge Rasha's mind about accused number 5. And secondly, accused number 5, we were told that he was Umdidelu Nkabi, but there's no proof that he received any money from Kelly Kumar. The court has all their bank statement. Zero, nothing. And Zungu did not say anything about accused number 5 having any cash after they came back after 9. Nothing. So even Zungu cannot say accused number 5 had cash after Senzo had died. But Baloyi is going to try and say, no, they hid it somewhere or whatever. But there is no evidence that accused number 5 received cash from Kelly Khumalo. So Kelly Khumalo is just a mastermind in their own crazy minds. There is no mastermind in this case. We know what happened. Based on Mlungu Hlophe's statement, it said, Utumela Madlala phoned Mlungu Hlophe and told him that Longotwala had shot Senzo Meyo by mistake. That is a statement before court. So the story by Uzungu, inganekwane, nothing more, nothing less. So any court or any appeals court will see that Ratha is wrong if you find these guys guilty. They will overturn Ratha's guilty verdict if we get to that. But Section 174, I think accused number 4 and 5 should get it easily because there's no evidence against them. Accused number 1 and 2, the problem is that Judge Ratha provisionally accepted those confessions. That might work against them, but you and me knows that they did not confess, they were tortured. Then accused number 3, the problem, they were, you see, the people that said they saw him, especially the statement of Thabang Makeleni, is going to be a problem for him because the court accepted Makeleni's statement because he's dead. The defense cannot question Makeleni because he's dead now. See, so that's the problem for accused number 3. And then that gun that they linked to him, but we all know that Senzo was shot with a revolver, not a 9mm that belongs to Kadla. But Ratha might see it otherwise. So I think accused 4 and 5 stands a better chance in the Section 174 discharge. But if we had a fair judge, all of them should have their charges dismissed because there is no real evidence against them. But with this judge, angithembi kahle la. But anyway, we shall see. Thank you for watching.